Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat, just wanna give you my best. I don't even know your name, but you got me, 'cause you're on the dime. We don't know what happens next, but you got me, 'cause I'm next in line. You make it look so easy, making me feel so dreamy. Not the one who pays for drinks, but you got me, 'cause you're on the dime. Got me locked in now. Go ahead and take a shot. Do you really want me? Maybe you're just playing. The way you're making it move, yeah, you do it so smooth. Make it all about you. Can have it all if you want. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat, just wanna give you my best. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that.
Can't get you out of my mind. Oh baby, every curse like a new adventure, pulling me into the center closer. Yeah, baby, I'm not playing around. I mean every little word. I can't get you out of my mind. Oh baby, every curse got me going crazy. Can't control it, cannot see it all. Man.
Hey everybody, it is Rodney Howell and Shop Talk tonight. And you know what? I'm not Rodney Howell, but I am one of the ladies in the shop, and we have a couple special guests and a really hot topic today. So let's bring out our guests. We have Michelle Finley, and she is my girl living in Texas.
Hey
and
there.
She is a mortgage loan officer. She's also a real estate agent. And she does a lot of amazing things. I also have my daughter, Ashley. Hey, Ashley. How are you, girl? She's in LA. She's a makeup artist in LA, and she's also doing amazing things. So we've got really hot topic tonight, guys. So it is playing house, cohabitating versus marriage. So what do you guys think? I mean, is this like, I know that we've talked about this before. We've all talked about this, but is it good? Is it bad? Is there a difference? Here's a question coming up. Is there a difference between cohabitating and marriage when purchasing a home? I'm going to direct that to Michelle as a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent too, so I can kind of chime in. But Michelle, is there a difference?
Absolutely. So legally, there's a difference. Title, deed, all of it. It doesn't automatically go into the couple's ownership, right? It depends on the state. It depends on the laws of that state. Someone could be left out in the cold without a marriage license. Someone could literally be left out in the cold if something happened to the other partner with no marriage or any legal documents in place supported by the state.
Yeah, in Michigan, there's, and I don't know, actually need to find this out, but in Michigan, I know that we have to have, before I married my husband, Ashley's dad, we bought a house together, and we actually had to put the deed in a specific way in order for both of us to be protected, which a lot of people don't know. They just think, hey, I live here. There are other states in the US that have common law marriage, and I don't know the rules. Like, I know California is one of them. But I think that it's really important that, that you got to think about that. If you're going to live together and buy a house together, are both of you going to be on title, like you said?
Yeah. And you factor in children. So heirs, if something happens, easily someone could lose ownership to the children. So
Yeah. So
definitely
what?
something to not take very lightly.
Not at all. Like, and then think about this. So yeah, just like you said when you're talking about the heirs. So what happens? Like, okay, so Michelle, you and your significant other buy a property together. If you're not married, if you're married, normally, at least in Michigan, if you're married, if somebody
The
passes away,
remaining,
it automatically goes to the other person, right? But
yeah.
if you're married, like you said, on the heirs, if one of you passes away, your half doesn't necessarily the other half doesn't necessarily go to the other partner. It actually goes to their children or their
Yeah.
heirs. So it could be an uncle, an aunt, a mother, a father, a
Mhm.
cousin that you don't even know. And now you've got this stranger owning part of your house. That just is crazy to me. So
Yes.
people really have to be careful, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. And minimizing it, saying marriage is just a piece of paper. It's not. It's not just a piece of paper. It's an important piece of paper. So
You're right.
yeah.
So have you other than a fiance, we're gonna grab this other question. Other than fiance, there's some other other than finances, excuse me, are there reasons to live together versus getting married? Ashley, I'm gonna direct that to you.
I think yes. Personally, I know me. I like my personal space. So when I feel myself getting to that point in a relationship, before getting married, before doing any of that, uh-oh. Okay, cool. No, I'm still here. I think it is important to live with that other person to see how do we wake up in the morning? Are we morning people? If we get into an argument, how do we navigate living together after that argument? I think there's a lot of small things that we might not take into consideration, not living together versus living together. Because if you just jump into a marriage and you've never shared that space on a daily basis, what if you really don't get jiggy with that person? And how you live together. So that's how I look at it personally.
So you're actually playing house. So, so
I
I
wouldn't
guess
say playing house. I mean, what is it? What are we playing? Is that the house that you're building?
House.
I don't know. I think it depends on what your personal definition of a home, like a home, is for you. Is it playing or is that like your home? I think home becomes subjective in that matter.
Yeah.
so the way you answered that question, Ashley, you're basically saying you want to try your significant other out to see if you could live with them. Now, would you like what would that be? Like, would you if it didn't work out, if you didn't like if they were a morning person, you were a night owl, you'd be like, hey, this is not working out. So you know what? So is it too easy to just live together? It's like a trial marriage.
I wouldn't say a trial marriage. I think there's compromise in relationships, right? So let's say for the early bird and the night owl, what kind of compromise can we have? Do we have separate rooms? If I want to stay up really late and watch TV and you're ready to go to bed because you have an early morning, do we have that situation? Am I willing to maybe go to bed a little earlier for you? Those type of compromises. Just seeing how that plays out. If we get to a point where we cannot, on a bigger scale, obviously, right? And we just can't come to a mutual understanding, then it's easier to break that versus break a marriage.
Is it though?
I think so. I mean, emotionally, no. But if we're talking like paperwork.
But let's say this. Paperwork, we do that all the time, right? We do that every day in life. Let's say you've lived together several years. Now you've built a life together. You still have to unravel that life, right? So how easy is it? You've built relationships with that other person's family. You've purchased things together. You still got to unravel a life.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a big step. It's definitely a big step.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Ashley's point of view being in her 20s and,
Yeah.
not being like, just by nature, she has not, maybe she doesn't have as many things that shared, Michelle, like for you, I mean, what are the other reasons? Like, I know that knowing you've lived with a man before and,
Yeah.
other than the assets and concerns, what drew you to want to live together before getting married?
Well, we had a
What?
wedding date. We had a wedding date. So
Okay.
um I don't think I could do it without one.
Right. Okay.
For long term, right?
For long term. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think I could do it without a wedding date at this point in life, right? Because again, like we said, or like I said, it's a lot to unravel if you don't work out.
Right.
And especially now with so much that's involved. But to try on for size, like Ashley said, but not really. I found out very quickly that we did flow well together. And in those areas that we didn't, we adjusted. Just like my husband and I never lived together before marriage. Okay. And we found out very quickly that we were aligned. I guess it takes, if you've taken the time to get to know the person, many of those things you can see if they're going to be a problem in advance, right? If you've been to their home a significant amount of times, they've been to yours, you can see how a person lives, but it's not until you're actually living with them when you find out, other things.
Right. No, I gotcha. I got another question for you guys. If you purchased a home while living with somebody, are you obligated to split the revenue with them at the end? And that's a really good question, because I can speak on that because I had a nasty divorce that came up. Michelle, do you have an experience that you want to share with us?
No. No. Well, so if you remain together until the home is being sold, and if both of you put in equal amounts into the down payment, I'm not going to say about the monthly mortgage payment because I don't know how that would work out in a couple like that, but if you equally put down a significant amount for the down payment, you should be able to do that at the end when you sell the property, because you both contributed to purchasing the asset. So
it's really interesting because I just represented a client. Two men were married, and they were married. They weren't living with somebody. And I mean, they were married. And so the house that they had, it was a fixer upper, right? And the one person bought it and owned the property in title because he's the one that got the mortgage, and he never added the husband to title. And so what happened was that the other husband that was not entitled, that didn't buy the property in his name, he actually put all the money in to fix it up. So he probably put, let's say, $100,000 in the property, and the property was $100,000 to purchase. They split up. It was a nasty, nasty divorce. It was a horrible divorce. I feel like I'm a counselor sometimes, really. I know that, Michelle, you know it. And Ashley, when you're with your clients, I'm sure you hear a whole lot of things, right? But anyway, so when this happened, they actually they fought about it. And in the end, and this was horrible, the person who was not entitled, and they were married, and this is Michigan law, the person that was not entitled got nothing. His $100,000 he was entitled to, but he had to prove it. He had to have receipts. But you're in married bliss. You're saying, I trust you. It's not a problem. How do you get into, in other states when then they actually were married? And I think the question is what happens when they're actually, not married? What would you do? Ashley, what would you do if you knew you're going to try and buy a house, and you're smart beyond your years, because I know you. What would you do if you were going to be in that situation? Buy a house with somebody, and then actually go in and you do the work. What would you do? Would you have a piece of paper? What would you do?
Absolutely. So I'm big on agreements. So whether we're married, not married, whether it's business, friendship, whatever, I always have to watch my 6 because someone might not be watching it for me. So there's absolutely going to be something written, point blank period. There has to be something written in place so that I'm not caught with the short end of the stick. I'm not putting up any money and I'm not getting anything back. I need to know it for sure. I need to know.
And I know you're going to take care of us. We're going to take a quick break and we will be back. And I think we might pick that topic up, but we'll see in a minute.
We know what you made of. I do better offline. Yeah. I've been calling to a guy. I'm in tune with the signs. I'm just trying to let go. I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to do Moon landed with the elevation. Arm strong with the levitation. My third eye needed calibration. That was heat rock when I notated. I've been going crazy. Stone face when I kill beat. Leaving no trace on location. Premeditated. Ayy.
This is Shop Talk with Rodney Howell, and I am Joyce Santiago Clark with my guests Michelle Finley and Ashley Elizabeth. So, hey, we were talking just before the break. We were talking about getting into buying a property with somebody. Are you obligated to split the proceeds after if you're not married? And we briefly talked about that. And Ashley was talking about, making sure that you have an agreement. So, Michelle, tell me, elaborate a little bit more on that. You as a mortgage person and as a real estate agent, how important is that agreement after the fact or during the fact?
You obviously know based on that previous story, but it's important because when money's involved, everyone loses their mind. I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. And especially you throw in some bitterness, some anger. I mean, just in my own scenario, how long did it take me to get my down payment back? Like 2 years to get my down payment back. But I'm the one that broke it off. So there's that. Okay. You know what I mean? People get angry.
Yeah, it's crazy. You gotta make sure, you have that, and you got to take the emotion out of it.
You do, but no one does.
But no one,
like hardly anyone ever does.
It's crazy. So, would you consider living with somebody when you really prefer to get married? I'm switching topics, but would you consider living with somebody when you really prefer to get married? I think the question is like, would you settle temporarily? And Michelle, you said you had a date, you had a wedding date, and so you did it. But would you tell me a little bit more about that?
Would I settle?
Yeah, well, were you with somebody before you got married because you had a wedding date? Was that a settle, or was that not the
Oh
finances,
no,
but
it was convenient for me. I was the priority. It was convenient for me. It worked. The timing worked, and the date was only 6 months out.
okay.
So yeah, it made it easier to plan. It made it easier to get comfortable in that new space that we had never shared, even though we knew each other for all those years. So it did help. I wish we had done it years ago. Then I would have found out everything I needed to find out, and then the end, right? But it happened when it was supposed to happen. But yeah, I don't think I'd ever change it. The fact
I
that
don't
it
think,
happened.
and I don't want to say that it's necessarily settling, but would
Yeah.
if you wanted to really get married, but the other person says, you know what, why don't we live together? But you really wanted to be with that person,
I couldn't do it.
you couldn't do it.
I,
Ashley, what do
I
you think?
I okay, so would I settle? No. And this goes back to the agreement thing for me, which is why I think it's important to have a serious and open, honest conversation with whoever you're dating, and have those expectations set. So for me, I am okay with living with someone and not being married. But at that point in our relationship, we are probably very serious, at least in my head. Again, that's that agreement though. Like, we've decided to either you move into my place or I move into yours, or we get a place together. Not a home per se. At 24, I'm not purchasing a home. So probably more likely an apartment, 12 months, 16 months, see how that works out. Because that's a little less. We can get out of that contract. That's easy. But hopefully that conversation went well if we're both on that same page and we're looking to go forward to marriage. So I'm open to that question. I am open to living with someone or doing that, and still hopes to get married, because I think in my head that is the progression of things anyway.
So
yeah.
it's a progression to live together first and then get married, because that's the direction you're going in. Cool. So we got another question. If a person said they did not want to get married because of financial revenue from a previous marriage, would you cohabitate with them? That is a really good one.
That's a very good one.
So, that's really, I haven't been in a divorce situation, but they do not want to get married because they probably are getting alimony, right? So, but if you cohabitate with them versus if they get married in different states have different laws, but if you get married, typically your alimony will end. Yeah. So don't do that. Why would you get rid of your income or, so that is interesting question. Michelle, would you do that? Would you do that?
Whew.
I'll tell you what, I would do it. Ashley, would you do it? You're getting alimony.
Do it. I would absolutely do it, because in my mind, get the money. Get the money. You can use that money for a lot of things. We can use it for a lot. Get the money.
Yeah. I feel like I would, depending on the amount, let's be clear. Depending on the amount, I would do it. I'd keep getting my alimony.
Right.
But depending on the relationship with the man that was paying the alimony, if it's contentious, if he's concerned that his alimony is paying for my home and all these things, and I've got to deal with that, I would say goodbye. All money ain't good money. I would say goodbye.
Well, I tell you what, if it's, I have to say it depends on the amount.
It depends on the amount.
Look, if it's like,
25, 30 grand a month, I'm like, never getting married to you guys.
Never get married. Ashley's, are you saying I know your opinion is that, hey, if the money's coming in, it's cool. But what if you have drama from the other spouse that's actually paying the alimony to the husband, the ex-husband that you're now cohabitating with? Are you willing to deal with that drama, the potential drama?
Potentially. Because ultimately you got to pay it. So whatever, like, you have to pay it. So you can't not pay it. You have to pay it. So whatever.
Look, she's like trying to run your household, and she's
can't.
like,
cannot. She literally cannot because
She can't, but she can give you the blues.
Whatever. Block. You got to pay it. At the end of the day, she still would have to pay. So
Yeah.
Or he.
Or he, whoever, like they still, it doesn't matter how much grief they try to give you because they do have to pay it. Like, so whatever. Yeah.
I know. Go Ashley. I mean, they definitely got to pay it. I mean, that's the reality behind it. I mean, they got to pay it. The money's coming in. You guys seen that meme on TikTok when it's like, hey, this is Keisha there? And Keisha's not there. And the
that was hilarious.
That's funny. I think everybody's seen that meme where it's like, hey, you know what? I'm just playing with you. Yeah, I have her call you back. That is a funny meme. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So you know what? I would agree with Ashley. I would probably accept the money and just deal with the baby mama drama. But if Michelle said, you know what, it's $1,000 a month.
Right. If it's just a couple grand, man, listen, we'll make that. We'll create another stream somewhere else, honey.
Give me all the money, because how I look at it is every dollar counts. Every dollar counts. So
we'll create new dollars.
I'll create new dollars with those dollars. I'm gonna put it up.
Yes. That's how you do it for X amount of time. Give it a time limit, and just be like, yeah, we're gonna use this cash right here to do this over here. I like that. I do that.
Yeah.
Go ask.
Knowing that there was an end time.
I'm going to cut you off. Next question. How do you feel about a document stating your relation terms versus a marriage certificate? That is a really, really good one. So legal document, Ashley, earlier you talked about having an agreement. So your relationship terms, hey, this is what we're going to do if we buy a house, if we buy a car, or you going to do this, you're going to pay for this, or not even the finances, about like, you know, what's expected in a marriage or a legal document that's legal and binding, you know, instead of an actually marriage, because there's actually people who don't believe in the term marriage. What do you think?
Right.
Well, for me, I'm a hopeless romantic. So I do want to get married. I want the whole marriage certificate and everything right now at 24. But when things become a little more intertwined with other things in life, if I hit 35, 36, and there's other factors in play, it might make more sense to have a document in place or terms and agreements versus a marriage. I think it just depends, but I do want the fairy tale. I want the marriage certificate. I want the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for both of you. So let's say you knew somebody, let's say you said, you know what, I'm going to move in with this guy and we're going to agree. What kind of things are you going to agree upon? What are you going to have on that list of items? Are you going to have like, okay, like in marriage, you become one, right? Most states, when you get married, you are one. Everything is the same. You can file the same tax return together. You are considered one entity for all intents and purposes. What are you going to have in your living together agreement?
Ashley? Because I can't help with that. I don't know.
I don't know either, honestly. I mean,
like, what are you going to say? Okay, so you're going to this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually have, when we buy property, this is what we're going to have on the list. We're going to buy property and this is how it's going to go. Or is it going to be, hey, you know what? When we buy a car together, this is what it's going to be. You're going to pay the car payments. I'm going to pay the insurance. Are you going to have these, you know, different things on your list? It's like, you know, in marriage, it's like, once you get married, it's both your responsibility, right? You know, maybe you don't have credit in each other's names. That's different. But a legal document stating, hey, okay, now we agreed in writing that if I buy the car, you got to pay the insurance. Or if let's say, or even something as simple as, you know, okay, when we live in Michigan, we're also going to have a house in Florida, you know, and then you pay for the house in Florida and I pay for the house in Michigan. You know, what are you going to have on those terms? Ashley, you know, you want an agreement.
I don't want an agreement, but I think agreements need to be made in general. What I will say to that is, like, let's say there is a car, right? For that example, a car, insurance, title, all the information. I think everything should be put into one pot. Okay, so this is worth $60,000. Now that's in half, unless, and now we have contingencies. Oh, he makes significantly more than me. Oh, she makes significantly more than me. It doesn't make sense if I'm only bringing in $2,000 a month for me to have an overhead of 5,500. I can't do it. But if his income is like 25K a month, you can handle that. So I think there would have to be a lot of like clauses in that to make that happen. But ultimately, even if I were married, I would want everything to be pretty much split in half, because we're working as like a unit now. So everything is coming together and we have to figure that out together, because we have to both keep this house over our head. We have to both, you know? So
Yeah.
at that point, because we are coming together, everything ends up just coming out the same pot anyway. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, but 50-50 is like a unicorn, frankly. It's not possible in most scenarios, right?
How come?
Because like you said, the income. So one is making significantly more, one is making significantly less, and it changes throughout life. I think what's most important is to be able to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
What's most important is to have those conversations up front about how are we, despite not being married, going to handle our finances. If I wanted
That's
a
really
roommate,
really good
if I
point.
wanted a roommate,
Break
yeah,
real quick and then pick that back up. So see you in a couple minutes.
okay.
Hey, everybody. Ooh, I fuzzed my hair up. We are back with Shop Talk with Rodney Howell. And I'm not Rodney Howell. I'm Joy Santiago Clark. Sorry about that, guys. And I have my girl, Michelle Finley, and Ashley Elizabeth with us today. And we are talking about playing house, cohabitating versus marriage. So one of our viewers actually, Rodney has made a comment. Hey, Rodney. Christine Burkett, awesome guys. You all look good. We do. Thank you. Except my hair just fuzzed out. Sorry about that. So anyway, Dorothy Jeter, I hope I said that right, Dorothy. She said when we were talking about having a piece of paper to identify versus a marriage certificate, What do you put on that piece of paper? And she said, set the foundation. Dorothy, that is a great point. I love that. And I have one more thing. We're going to chime in on that. Anissa, I think, or Anissa Cook Batista. Hey, girl. When partners contribute to a household, it isn't about equal amounts, but equal sacrifice. Michelle, you were touching on that. That
Yeah.
is. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I agree. Like it's about both putting in that effort. What if one of them doesn't even have a job, right? One of the partners doesn't even have a job, no income. But what is that person doing to contribute to the household? For whatever reason, our community tends to believe that your worth is just dollars. And that's probably in today's, just in America, period. But your worth isn't just your dollars. It's everything you put into that household. And I think in creating that foundation, those are things that should be discussed as well. If I'm doing laundry all the time, if I'm cooking and cleaning all the time, I'm busy, right? And I'm also contributing to the household. So there's going to be times when things ebb and flow. Someone makes more, someone makes less, and you should be able to adapt to that. That's what I think. But a lot of relationships just end because of that.
Yeah, and I think that people they don't put enough weight on contributing to the household, like one of the viewers said. And it's like,
Yeah,
I think it's really important that you do, because I think you said we use dollars. You're right. And I think it's because a lot of times there's no other measuring stick.
right.
I think, honestly, we talk about this all the time. Time is actually the most valuable asset anybody has. And so
Yeah.
if you have to put that asset into a relationship, that's worth more than any dollars. Ashley, what do you think about that? I mean, you being in your 20s, a younger person, and let's be fair, you are very successful in what you do right now, but you're still building wealth. You're still building wealth, and you're still getting to the level where you have to you may both be contributing more time than actual dollar amounts. So when we touched briefly about having that piece of paper defining a marriage, or a contractual agreement instead of a marriage certificate, what do you put in that document that may say, hey, you know what, I'm contributing all this time. What is that time going to be worth in our marriage? If you had to, as a younger person, not immature, I might add you were very mature and very beyond your years, as I always say. What would you, bounce that off a little bit. What do you think?
I think it is hard to put into writing how much your time is worth. That is very hard to write down. I have learned, especially over these last couple of years, as being a full-time makeup artist, how much your time is actually worth, especially on a weekend. So on a weekend, I can make X amount. If somebody wants me on set for this amount of time, but I know I can make this amount of money, you kind of have to make up for the time that you're keeping me. That really put into perspective, like, wow, my time quite literally is money. Because if I'm here and not somewhere else, I'm either losing out on money, but I don't want to look at it like that. So you have to compensate me for that time. So in a relationship, that's kind of difficult to put a number or to even write it down. Like, oh, I've contributed this much time and that's worth this. I think it becomes like common sense, which I know is not common. I know that's not common, but it's like common sense would tell someone like, okay, I've been out working all day and I take care of the bills. You should be, I guess, at home cleaning up and doing those tasks. Like, and then, oh, I've been doing this all day, but then you want me to come home and cook and clean. Like, I think it becomes like a common sense thing somewhere along the lines. And then you have to have a conversation about that. Like, I've been at work all day. I'm tired. Why do I have to come home and pick up your drawers and wash the floor and take the dogs out and put the kids to bed? Why do I have to do that?
Yeah.
So I think, again, it comes into those conversations that you have with your partner.
Yeah. I think it's important the partner you choose. Your partner you choose.
Say again,
I didn't
Michelle.
hear
Go
you.
ahead. I can't hear you.
I said it's the partner
No,
you choose, because
absolutely.
if they don't value, and you know this long before you move in, if they don't value what you do before you move in together, they're gonna value it even less once you move in together. They'll take it for
Right.
granted. And I mean, arguably, running a household could be a full-time job if you're taking care of other things for them as well. Your
Right.
things, their things, and the household. It could be, but we don't, again, see the value in that as much as a society.
Is it easy? I got another question. Is it easier to walk away from a relationship and financial security when you're not married? Woo, that's a good one. That's the whole premise of the show, of today's topic, is that, how easy is it to walk away? Because now you're not married. Now you don't have that legal document, quote unquote legal document, right? Or legal, didn't swear before a judge or God or anybody else. Is it easier to just walk away? I mean, is it?
Ashley, you want to go first?
I'm going to say no, it's not. Because whether you're married or not married, if we're taking that off the table completely, you love a person. And when you love a person, that is hard to disconnect from them. It's like, especially when you're really invested, not just financially, like time spent, the memories that you've made, the connections that you made with their friends and their families, like it goes way beyond the financial. So if you feel like, oh, like it's heartbreak, people literally get sick from heartbreak. So I don't think it's easier. It might be easier for written purposes if you don't have anything written down for agreements. But as far as like heartbreak, I don't think it necessarily is easier or harder unless you just really have this idea of marriage and you're like, oh, and we were married. Oh, so I think it just depends. But the heart is still broken regardless.
Right.
Well, go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, if you're married too, you got the whole court thing going. So, I mean, by definition, that makes it harder, right? You've got to go through a divorce. You've got to go through a waiting period. You've got to go through unwinding all those things. Like we talked about earlier, Ashley, like your home, all the things you purchased together. It could be many things at a certain age. So I think that's another thing, age and what you've done in your life complicates it more if you're married. If you're young, you got a backpack and some stuff. You just go. And did you have financial security anyway? I mean,
right. So we got a comment from Rodney. And Rodney, why are you not on the show? Anyway, it says, if you and your significant other aren't married, and I don't know what the comment is, but let's talk about this. And you want to purchase a home together. Whose name goes on the property? Can both names go on if you're not married? And then he asked me, what is your professional opinion, Joy, in this situation? So we talked about this a little bit. We talked about getting a property together. Yeah, I think that both names should go on the property together. But you know what? There have been times when, it's all about trust as well. If you're going to be living together, it's all about agreements and trust. And, what do you think? I mean, would you trust your significant other if you didn't go on title? Like if Ashley, let's say, you say, you know what, I'm going to buy this house and you can live here with me. And well, I know what you're going to say, Ashley, but I want everybody to hear it. I'm going to buy this house and it's going to go in my name. And then your significant other, your boyfriend, living boyfriend says, okay, I'm cool. I'll just live here. That's cool. But what is his expectation is going to be, or if the situation were flipped, he bought the house, but you put money in, what would you do?
So this is where it's not really fair how I'm thinking about it, but it is what it is. And I'm going to say it anyway. If I buy a house, and he's moving in with me, you're not going on it. Sorry, buddy. But if he's buying a house.
Oh, no.
If he's buying a house, I'm going to be put on it for sure. whether I'm putting anything financially into it, I'm being put on it. Yes. But especially if I'm putting money in, for sure. But if it's me, I don't know about that.
Well, so I had the.
Sorry.
So for my personal situation, I had to walk away for that reason, right? He tried to tell me, a mortgage professional, a realtor, or real estate agent, that we could just move in together after when we close, we can just move in together and you automatically go on the deed. You're automatically part owner. I said, who do you think you're talking to? Here, take this back. No, that's not how this works, grown up.
Eek. I think we have a comment. Dorothy, hey girl, thank you so much for coming. Maybe if you're not living in a state that has common law, that might work, right? But yeah, common law, you know what? When you do that, that definitely does it. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to pick this topic back up, and we'll see you in a minute.
Get it that I'm never going back. Get it that I'm never going back. I get to it first, I got you mad. I guess that when I get to it last. Get it that I'm never going back. Get it that I'm never going back. Going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going up. Get it that I'm never going up, going up.
Hey, we're back. You didn't warn anybody. But anyway, we are back, and we lost Michelle. What happened? We are Shop Talk with Rodney Howell, and I'm Joyce Santiago Clark filling in today. We are talking about playing house, cohabitating versus marriage. Hey, Michelle, you made it back, girl.
I made it back.
Okay, so
Barely.
we've got a couple more questions, and let me read this question. Do you think the emotional impact is different when you're married versus cohabitating? Ooh, that's a really good one. I definitely love that question. You know what, Michelle, what do you think? You've been married before, and and you live with somebody. What's the difference?
Whew. There wasn't emotionally not much difference because again, I was engaged, right? So it was still the same. Everybody wants to say that they don't feel like a failure when they've divorced and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, no one wants to get a divorce and it feels like you failed at something that you wanted. So that's how that felt for me both times, like both ways. So I don't know. Do you think there would be any difference for you?
You know what? Being, I lived with Ashley's dad before I married him. And it is different, actually. It is actually different, in my opinion. The emotional impact. I mean, when we got married, that was saying, you know what, it's serious, it's for real, in my opinion. Some people think, when we were together, and I think it was just, for me, it was just a level of commitment, from him, from my husband. And, and for him, there may not be levels of commitment with other people, but my husband was the kind of guy and is the kind of guy that if he gets married, he's serious. That's a serious thing. And so I think it depends on who you're with, and emotionally what it is. My ex before my husband, it wouldn't have mattered. It was wrong. But, it wouldn't have mattered being married to him or not. It was the same level of his case non-commitment. So that was before Ashley's dad. But Ashley, I mean, do you think there would be any differences? You know, they talk about is a piece of paper any different? Do you anticipate, and you haven't been married yet, but do you anticipate having a piece of paper being different for you?
If we're not talking like piece of paper agreement, if we're talking about solely just cohabitating versus being married, I feel like it will be a slight difference only in it's insult to injury if you're married. Because regardless, it's like, yikes. But
Yeah.
now insult to injury. So it's like just a teensy bit over, you know what I mean? But I still think they're about the same. Uh, but in the idea of having an agreement, if we're drawing that equal between an agreement and marriage, then it, it's the same.
Yeah, I agree. How do children fit into cohabitating in a marriage versus a marriage? That's a good one. That's a really good one. And you can talk about it, Michelle, and Ashley, you can talk about it with ours a little bit. Be careful, be nice, but you can fit into cohabitating versus a marriage. Michelle, go. Let's hear from you because I think that you've got that blended. You've had that blended family.
Yeah, that was not with my husband. I did not. We had our own. But that was hard. That was hard because you don't just bond with the cohabitator. You bond with the children, right?
Right.
And well, the one that you like, because you don't like the other one. That's a whole different conversation. But you bond, and then to have to, and not even just the children, oh my gosh, nieces and nephews, you bond with them, and then you have to separate. And it's just, to me, that's just as hard as if it were marriage or just cohabitating. That's, yeah. I don't know how you manage it when you have to like look at discipline and stuff like that, because we didn't have that issue. They were older. But like decisions being made about the children, you have to sit back and watch because you can't participate. You're not married. It's hard. And it's hard as a married person and harder cohabitating.
It is because and I can speak on my situation, and I'll be nice to you, Ashley. Ashley's dad and I lived together before we got married. But first of all, let me say that in the time we were together, my husband, my now husband, at the time we weren't married, I wasn't even around his children, not a lot. And he was very sure on that. So that, especially being a younger at the time, but when we did live together, obviously the kids were around, they knew it, but it was, I think, they were a little bit younger, but I think it was hard to define it. And it was definitely hard. I mean, Ashley, you can give your opinion on it. Now you're older, everything is water under the bridge, but, speak to it, and how did you feel back then?
So cohabitating versus marriage, as far as like how it affected me or whatever, I didn't see much of a difference or feel much of a difference when y'all weren't married versus when y'all were married, because you were already living in a house. That's essentially like what cohabitating is. It's not how do children fit in the picture of dating versus marriage. We're talking about how do you so if a person's already living in the house, we've already have this established, like these are the adults of the house. These are the people that you're supposed to listen to, regardless if it's marriage or not. So for me, there was no difference. It was literally the exact same. Years prior.
That's only because you were raised right.
I mean, maybe so, maybe so. But I didn't look at it any differently, like you're already in the house, like it just is. The marriage thing, that was more for y'all. That had nothing to do with me. It's not a matter of, oh, well, y'all aren't married, so I'm not listening to you. And then all of a sudden now you're married and now I have to listen to you. That didn't make a difference at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, for me, it was not quite the same, and I, me personally, I wanted the title of stepmother, right? I wanted the title, and it was a definition for me it was a validation, if that makes any sense. And that's really cool. And as much as we talk, Ash, I never heard you say that. It really wasn't a difference. And, that makes me feel better now, years after, whatever. But at the time, it wasn't, it wasn't easy.
I agree.
I didn't have that title. I didn't have, I'm his wife, I'm her stepmother. I didn't have that anymore, or at the time. I do have it now. And, we're closer than ever. And it's because you're an adult, obviously, Ashley. But I mean, at the time it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. We got one last question, and I think we're going to talk about that. Do you think the circumstances or age dictate whether you cohabitate or get married? That is a really, really good question too. I love that question. So, when do you get married? We know something. We're going to talk about this. So there was a situation. We were at a wedding recently, and they just got married, and they were in their 20s. And it was a situation that they had to get married in their 20s. I'm not going to go into it, but they had to get into it because of the circumstances. Ashley, would you get married for a circumstance?
It would have to be an extenuating circumstance for me. If I felt like if it were a push, like if we were dating and we weren't there yet, but like we could probably see it in the future, and then something came up and it's like, we have to get married right now. Well, everything is expedited, so it would have to be an extenuating circumstance. I feel like, to the question though, also, I think age could dictate it, but I also think other circumstances, like, what are your religious beliefs? Some people are very religious and they're like, you cannot live with someone if you're not married. You cannot do X, Y, and Z if you're not married. So I do think it depends on the individuals at play, and where their beliefs fall as well.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, I think age and circumstances like alimony and retirement funds all play into it, especially at this age, right? As one of the elders in the room. I think no longer is it really about raising children or anything. So if cohabitating is the more beneficial scenario, then I say have at it. But it's not something I desire.
I hear you. I think at a certain point for women, I think that at a certain age, we want to be married, at least our generation. I don't know about you, Ashley, and your generation. I think that's different. Take a religion out of it, okay? But in our generation, it was important for us to be married, and to have that word married. Now I see so many different definitions of partnerships that it doesn't really matter if you're married or if you're life partners, and that could be straight, gay, whatever. But I think it's really important. I mean, I think it's just, in the end, I think it's what the two people want.
I think for a historical point, which Joy knows, I really love history because it intertwines with a lot of things. But historically, even we see it now today, women weren't granted the same access to jobs, education, finances. Right. So we're seeing a lot more now that women can be a lot more financially stable on their own. They can do a lot of these things on their own. Women are like, we should be a lot more protected. But I think because we're not, we've created this shield for ourselves of protection, but also like, how can we live on our own and make it happen on our own? So I think that also is why we're seeing like the younger generations as well. Like, we do want to be in relationships. We would like to be married. However, I can do this by myself. Like, I don't need you. I want you, but I don't need you. So I think that's what we might see.
That's a good point. We got 2 comments that I got to read real quick, and then we got to wrap up today. Rodney Howell, Ashley, why do you think that you should be put on his house and he can't put on yours? Do you think that's fair?
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair at all. That's the thing. I don't think it's fair, but hey, shoot me.
I think you prefaced it with "it's not fair."
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
But that's the way it's going to go down. Okay, so Pamela says, I'm in my 50s. Either you marry me or keep it going. I'm too old to be a girl I know that's right, Pamela. You know what? And that's the thing is we talked about it's our generation, and then Ashley really summarized it very well. Is that a word? She summarized it very well and said, it's different. It's want. It's not necessarily a need anymore. And so, but anyway, I think we got to wrap up the show because we are at 9 p.m. on the dot. I like to be timely. I know Chris does too. So anyway, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Michelle. And Rodney, you better be back here next week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
We know what you made of. I do better offline. Yeah. I've been calling to a guy. I'm in tune with the signs. I'm just trying to let go. I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to do fine. Moon landed with the elevation. Armstrong with the levitation. My third eye needed calibration. I was heat rock when I notated. I've been going crazy. Stone face when I kill beat. Leaving no trace on location. Premeditated. Ayy.